nobody in my circles, no black Christians in my circles were walking around believing in the Jesus of Norway. Like none of us was like, so what are we decolonizing? I don't understand. Like, yeah.
And so when I then arrive into popular culture, and I am told that the only proper black response is one stream of the black Christian tradition, I can just say from experience, you are lying to the people.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you guys for skipping out on hearing VeggieTales and coming to join me. I know it was a tough decision because I really wanted to go hear, about Tom the Tomato. Bob the Tomato, oh my gosh. Let's do that over. I really wanted to hear about Bob the Tomato. But hopefully we're going to have a good time here. Just the kind of expectations of what's going to happen. We're going to interview some folks that I think are great, that I would love not only for you guys to maybe be introduced to if you haven't, but also I have the opportunity to speak with somebody you should be very familiar with. So the first individual we're going to talk to is Esau McCaulley. So look at that. Well, there you go. I don't need to. So this is his book. I just got done reading it. We're going to ask him some questions if you have. The wonderful thing is I'm going to leave some time for you to ask questions as well to the guest. So be thinking of questions, not only that are related to maybe the content we speak of, but maybe if you've read his first book, Reading While Black, feel free. I'm sure he wouldn't mind chatting about that. The second guest we may have just found out he the wrong time zone, but he's going to text me back and let me know if he's available. And that is a good friend of mine that I've done music with for over a decade, Tedashii Anderson, or Tedashii. He's a hip-hop artist. Went to college together, started the 116 Click, Reach Records together, and so he's going to jump on. And then lastly, I literally just learned this about this individual maybe an hour ago, that his real name is not Pete. Because I was sitting there, I was like, I don't understand. I know he wrote The Hiding Place, but why doesn't it say Pete? And so we'll get a chance to talk with AS. Author, is it author?
I don't know.
No, the name is.
Superior.
Okay. Author Superior, that's what we'll call him. Author Superior Peterson. And so hopefully we'll have enough time to, and then if there are any questions in between or afterwards that you may have of me, which I don't think you will, feel free to do that. But today, I think the overall theme that I would like to kind of circle around is just the idea of spotlighting the ordinary, because oftentimes, we spend a lot of time spotlighting extraordinary people, and that's great. But from Esau's book to, I think, what Tedashii is dealing with, and even to the work that Superior has worked on, we oftentimes forget that ordinary people do great things to create great change in our world. And it's not always the grand Big Bang events that change the trajectory of life. It's often the slow consistency of faithfulness that people engage in that get us to see how wonderful our God is. And one way that I want to showcase that is I have on this front bench here in front of Aaron with the nice beard. I love the beard. It's nice and low. I'm trying to get there. I did this project with Trinity Forms. I don't know how many of you are familiar. They often give away these booklets. This one here is Moses, Man of the Mountain by Zora Neale Hurston, one of my favorite writers. And because I talk about her a lot, and I wrote about her in my book, which is He Saw That It Was Good. You can buy it out there in the front if you want to, and I may sign it if you buy it. Just to do the same. Signature is $10 extra. I was blessed with the opportunity to write the introduction for this. And so I don't think we quite have enough for everybody. So I guess you just got to be quick and get to it. So, but they're here. And the reason why I wanted to give this away is one, because I have hundreds of them in my house. But two, is because Zora Neale, to me, though she wasn't a Christian, she spent a lot of her life like spotlighting the wonderful display of what she called high religious drama, if you will, the high drama of the church. And spotlighting what I like to think were the ordinary low culture of society, while she was a part of a movement, the Harlem Renaissance, that spent a lot of time, I guess you could say, propagating the exceptional talent of black society to fight against racial propaganda. And as I like to think that, yes, you know, exceptional work is good and it changes minds, but it's easy to love exceptional people. But the gospel is truly displayed when we can love people who are not of our social statuses, of our in our circles, in our social spheres, if you will. And I think Zora does a great job that I think evangelicals can learn from, of how to put ordinary people on display and give them dignity. I like to say that her saints wore overalls, slept under shade trees, and spoke with country idioms. And I often see that here in the Rabbit Room. So, and some of the, you know, authors that, you know, we espouse or you espouse here. So, all that to say that I'm excited. I would like to, I have 2 albums here that I don't know, somehow I'm gonna give them away. I don't know how I'll think of how I'll do that, but I don't think we should delay any further. Let's go ahead and bring in our guests. Hopefully it all works out, and you know, so we'll see. How about that? How about you pray for our time?
I got you.
Yeah.
All right. Let's pray. Father, thank you for this time here, in this wonderful place, among friends and friends we haven't met yet. Lord, I pray your blessing over our internet connection, that it would go smoothly and that folks will be able to pop in as needed. And pray for this time together. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen. What's your name?
I'm Ashley.
Ashley.
What's up?
Amen. I appreciate you, Ashley.
Appreciate you, man.
Ashley, do you believe in like generational sins?
Yeah.
By chance?
Yeah.
Do you believe that nations can sin, and do you believe in repentance and repair?
Yeah.
Are you familiar with Ezra 1, where King Cyrus gives Ezra and the people of Israel resources to go back and rebuild Jerusalem?
It's been a minute, but yeah.
Can you stop screaming at me about reparations, please? I agree. We should participate in reparations. Goodness gracious. Here's an album.
I love vinyl. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Go forth and make disciples in reparations.
My husband's
You can do that a couple more times, but towards the crowd, though. Like, show them what's happening. Yes, yes. So the theme of that album, the narrative, was based on Frederick Douglass, The Narrative of a Slave, and I tried to be my handsome self like Frederick Douglass and give it a profile. So
I see it. I see it.
there you go. Thank you. You don't have to flatter me. I already gave you the album. Okay. Goodness gracious.
I call it like I see it, dude.
Okay. Thank you so much. All right. Go ahead and come in late. We're just waiting on you. We're waiting on you guys. You know what I'm saying? Just playing. All right, so here we go. We're about to, I'm going to bring in Esau, and we're going to make this thing work. Let's go. Esau McCaulley, ladies and gentlemen. Right now, we just have the name. Then we're... Oh! Hello. Now, can you speak for us just to see if this audio is coming through the TV?
Are you talking to me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, it's coming through the TV.
It's coming through the laptop, but is there any way to figure out if it could come through the actual television? All right, can you guys hear us here? Okay, you know what? I think we're fine.
Wait. Why do I have to wear headphones but you don't? You told me to wear headphones.
They need to see my hair.
They need to see my lacquer pad. They need to see.
Well, usually because there's a potential of feedback, so I don't know. I just want to fight against that. But if you want to chance it and take the headphones off so people can see.
Let's see what's going to happen.
I just know that your ears are kind of weird, so I didn't know if you
I didn't. That's a problem, but I hate wearing headphones. They itch my ears.
Okay. Well, there you go. Oh, look at that. You're good.
Okay, I sound all right.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. So just make sure you project because we have about 50-ish people in this room, and
Oh, wait. This is happening live. You're somewhere.
don't worry about that. Just
I'm listening.
do you read your emails? Do your people? I don't understand what's happening. I don't understand what's happening right now.
No. I thought it was gonna be streamed live somewhere.
Oh no. Yeah. You know what's funny? I thought that too. And then no, we're recording it. So we're recording it here. We have cameras. We're recording the interview, and then I will post it on our YouTube page later. But there is a live audience right now who we're speaking to, and we will take questions from them as time goes on. So.
No, I knew that part. I knew there was an audience. I thought it was all online. I skipped one key component. I got 90% of the email correct.
So you have a PhD. I need you to do better. I need you to do better. I need you to do better. All right. So you guys, when I introduced the crowd, I said, hey, we have some guests you may not know. I said Esau, and everybody went crazy. People start fighting. It was just weird. So they know who you are. They know that you're a professor, associate professor at Wheaton. They probably know that you've written a book, Reading While Black. Today, we're going to talk about this book, and yeah, man, I'm excited. So I guess my first question, as I was reading through this glorious work, what made you write a memoir, and why did you feel like it was important to tell this particular story in 2023?
Well, I didn't set out to write a memoir. If you pay attention to like the narrative, it really started with my father's eulogy.
Yeah.
In 2017, when my father passed away, my family asked me to do the eulogy. And so my initial intent was just to write the sermon to kind of eulogize my father. But I didn't know him because he had not been a part of our family when I was growing up. He'd struggled with drugs and alcohol. And so anytime you do a eulogy, you got to sit down with people and kind of find out who they are. And so as I began to sit down with my mom, my aunties, uncles, and my sisters and brothers, it quickly became clear that this wasn't just me doing getting enough information to give a sermon for someone who died, but it was a story about Black life in the South. Mm-hmm. Because the further I delved into his story, I then got into my grandparents' story, then I got into my great-grandparents' story, and I was like, oh, no, this, like the 3 generations of my family reveals something about Black life in America. Yeah. And I felt like that was an important story to tell because it was that story, that entire context in which I was beginning to ask questions of God. I guess I'll put it this way. I've never been at the time when I read C.S. Lewis and stuff, I'd never been to England. Like, I didn't know anything about what it was like to be a British student in Oxford trying to figure out God. But I realized as I was working on all of the research I talked to you about, that it was precisely in that Black context in the South that I was having my struggles with God. Mm. And so there was a lot of books about kind of white middle-class Christians or middle-class agnostics who find God through this kind of series of events. But I didn't know a lot of Black stories where the character found God at the end. Yeah. There's a lot of kind of, and I know I'm rambling on, but there's a lot of like racially conscious Black stories where the guy becomes an atheist at the end. Mm. Or he realized that religion is just an opiate for the masses or whatever. Right. But I said, I want to write kind of a coming of age story set in a Black context, wrestling with the question of God, where at the conclusion, we decide that God is good. Because I know a lot of people have that experience.
Amen. So this is obviously an unapologetically Black story about a family in the South. You detail some of the racial trauma you go through, the way you overcome, your family overcomes, the beauty and the I guess you could say the struggle as well. And this room is about 90% Black. And
hey,
yeah, don't worry, don't look. So, but on the chance that there are some white people in here, why should why should a white person read this book? Like, what is helpful for them in reading this book about a Black man's struggle in the South?
That's what I was trying. That's what I was trying to figure out. That's what I was trying to articulate. Is that a lot of people read stuff outside of their experience?
Yeah.
They just read it. I mean, I talk a lot about how people say, "Man, I love British fiction," even though they've never been to Jane Austen's land in the 1800s
Right,
playing
right,
horses or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it's easy for people um, to examine or to see something in the lives of something that is alien to them because it's ultimately human.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons that even as a writer in general, I tend to make my stories black, not because I only want black people to read it, because I believe that black can be universal too.
Yeah, man.
That a black story told well can articulate something true about being human that everybody can learn from. Because I know we talk a lot about kind of decolonizing our bookshelves, and I get what people are trying to say. You should have an embrace bookshelf. But you know what? I still read white readers,
Absolutely.
white authors all of the time. And even though their experience is separate from mine, because we share common humanity, I can learn from anybody. So I read white authors, Asian authors, black authors, Latino authors. So for me, because it's human, it's universal. But also, one of the things I was listening to this podcast or interview somewhere where they're asking the question, and this might seem random, but it's related. Can white fiction writers write black characters well? It's an interesting conversation. And the person was a black author, and they said the reason that a lot of the times when white authors write black characters, it feels wooden, is because it's hard for them to imagine two black people having a conversation and the kinds of things we might talk about, because it's kind of hard to reconstruct that because it's not a part of their experience.
Right.
But oftentimes, black writers can do a really good job of reconstructing white conversations because we actually have to know white culture really well.
Right.
And when we're in the room, we sometimes treat it as if we're invisible. And so it's easy for us, or easier because of that context of having to know the majority culture to survive, to reconstruct that. And I would say one of the things that a white audience might be able to gain is that they can sit in a room through literature that they would never enter into normally in their own context and learn from it. Learn something, once again, about the black experience, but because it's the black experience and it's in America, it's about the human experience as well.
So, within the last 4 to 5 years, diversity, equity, inclusion has not only become good principles, but it's actually become an industry, and people prostitute it, for for various reasons. What is the difference? Where is the line, better yet, between racial advocacy and racial voyeurism?
This is one of the things that I try to address in my book. And one of the things that I would say is, at least for me, honesty. I think that one of the hard things to do as a black writer is to tell the truth. Because there is a financial benefit for lying, and there's a financial benefit to cater to certain audiences.
Amen.
And there's a financial benefit in writing to say that everything is the society, everything is culture, everything is the system. And that because and the goal of the writing is to explain how evil the majority culture is, and that's the only story to tell.
Yeah.
There's an audience for that. There's a bag for that, as we talk about.
Yep.
But there's also an audience if you say it's all personal responsibility.
Yeah.
If you say all of this racial stuff is kind of bunk, and that the DEI industry is all corrupt, there's a bag for that.
Yeah.
You know what there isn't a bag for? Me and you know about this.
Yes,
There's
yes.
no bag for telling the truth, right? The true audience.
Right,
the true
right.
audience is a little bit more complicated.
Absolutely.
And so if you read How Far to the Promised Land, you're not going to have like 15 chapters of how the man did me wrong. Because one of the things that I talk about is that poor people can be mean too.
Yeah.
That within the context of black communities, we sin against each other and we harm each other. And so the reality of the black struggle in America is a confluence of circumstances.
Yeah.
Our own decisions and the ways in which society makes those bad decisions amplified and the ways in which they stand in front of black flourishing. And so I think the hard part is, and I can understand this as a DEI, what a person who does diversity, equity, and inclusion might be afraid of is, if I acknowledge any personal responsibility, then people are going to pay attention to what I say about the system. And so I think the hard part is, can we get to the place where we can be honest?
Yeah.
and be vulnerable, because what happens when you're vulnerable is people don't listen to you. And I can tell you, man, like there's this point in the book where I said, and this is the religious area where this occurs.
Right.
I don't just need Jesus to give me tools to critique other people.
Amen.
I needed
Amen.
Jesus to critique me.
Amen.
Right? I needed in other words, I know society's messed up. That's common grace, right? I can figure that out by looking around. And I didn't need Jesus to be kind of the sprinkling on my social, cultural, political ideology. I needed Jesus to talk to me. And I think what we need is a conversation on race and diversity where we can be honest about that intersection. And I don't know if we can have it. And I'm just being, man, don't get me started. It's Saturday morning. I just feel like, man, I get it. But some of us are just doing too. I'll put it this way. I'll be circumspect. Some people are doing too much.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like, I'm tired of feeling bad, and I'm in the fight, and I feel like sometimes I'm not doing enough.
Oh no, yeah.
And I'm like, man, can we have a doctrine of grace as relates to racial justice and progress?
Yeah, for some you do too much, and for others you do too little. Yeah. But that's part of the space that people like you and I occupy. Yeah. And so there's so many questions from this book that I want to ask you. So I'm gonna try to speed through some of these. So you talk about the ordinary glory of like your grandfather and his faith and how that impacted you and led you to want to be a pastor and whatnot. In an article that you wrote for New York Times, you make this statement. You say, "But what use is the religion that only produces characters in history books? Was there not room for more ordinary glory?" Can you talk to us about what ordinary glory is and why we're so deficient in that maybe today?
Yeah, I mean, I'll try to be brief. Yeah. In that article, I struggle with this idea that a lot of my Black intellectual heroes are agnostic or atheist or just kind of dunk on the church. And what we tend to do as Christians is posit the Christian stars who make our religion viable. So we'll say, I'll see your, Zora Neale Hurston, and I will balance that out with the MLK, right? And we feel like if we get enough stars, we can balance the scales. Christianity becomes viable. And there is something to be said for the witness to people like King and Fannie Lou Hamer and those things. That's true. Right. But those aren't the people who actually were there when I was suffering.
Come on now.
And the people like the Sunday school teachers, the deacons and the mothers in the church, and my actual mom, my actual granddad, like the actual people who live around us. And one of the things we could talk about is, and I get it, people see the pastor on television who's robbing people and who's doing all of this other stuff, and they say, "See, that's Christianity, and that it's corrupt." And they drive past the hundreds of storefront churches where the guy is a janitor at the school and preaches on Sunday. And so for me, what I concluded was a religion that can only produce heroes is insufficient. But there is an ordinary beauty to just regular Christian people is what actually compelled my imagination. And for me, it was that I think makes Christianity glory. There's this part in Paul's letter. Don't have me going to Paul. When he says in 1 Corinthians, not many of you are wise, not many of you are intelligent, not many of you are influential. Basically, said God chose the weak things of the world to shame the wise. Yeah. And so God has always been glorified in ordinary people worshiping him to show, and there's the reason, this is why this is important. The reason why ordinary glory is so important is because it reveals the false values of society. Mm-hmm. The very things that everybody puts their hope in is not the place we go to meaning. Yeah. Our meaning arises from the fact that we're seen and known and honored by God. And so for me, as long as the church continue to produce people who love their kids and love their husbands and love their wives and treat their neighbor well and who go to work, who don't tweet, who don't publish opinion pieces, who don't have bars, like those people.
Well, we can have the bars, so we can have.
I had to come for you. I couldn't just let you live.
Yeah, well, don't take the artistry away from me, brother. Okay. All right, so you've been talking about England. Your affection for England is shown in your attire. Is that Paddington Bear on your chest right now?
It's polo.
Oh, that's polo. Okay. Oh, so Wheaton's paying you well. Okay, good stuff. You share something that I'm at Hutchmoot is a conference that Rabbit Room puts on, and the
I
way
know about Rabbit Room. I know about y'all. Hey.
Okay. Then why haven't you come? Why have you declined every invite?
Have I?
Well, somebody in the room has told me that you've declined, so I'm not gonna.
Okay. Tell them I will come to the next one. I'm coming to the next Hutchmoot in person.
Okay.
I'm pulling up. I'm pulling up.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Just want to put that out there. You're welcome. It's a motley crew of folks who probably, like in high school, played like Dungeons and Dragons.
From Lord of the Rings, where all the trees got together to decide whether or not they're gonna go to war. I know where that comes from.
Say that one more time.
I'm ready.
Say it one more time.
It's Lord of the Rings. It's from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is like
I know the whole thing.
we didn't have the folks didn't have that kind of space in high school. They were nerds, outcasts, and then finally found their tribe. It was like, oh, like C.S. Lewis says, you too? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like and I feel like I am that person. I feel like I grew up playing Dungeons and Dragons. I used to make up my own board games. I was a nerd, but I felt like I couldn't be that person. I'm going somewhere with this. In your book, you talk about how you preached a sermon at your grandfather's church, and afterwards he apologized.
Yeah.
He was like, "Don't worry, y'all. He gonna get better." So you talk about how you weren't like a prototypical black preacher.
Yeah.
And oftentimes we struggle to find our voice, or there are these social essentials that we feel we have to fit into in different cultures in order to feel validated. Yeah. How do you encourage folks who can appreciate something that they're a part of, but no, like that's not me, and how do I find my own voice in a redeemable way, if so?
The irony of my life is that I'm a failed Baptist preacher who speaks about the black church all the time. That's like this. Like if you want to talk about like all of the funny stuff.
And Anglican, because I was like, I think you're like one of 3 black folks I know who are Anglican.
Yeah, I know.
In America, in Africa, everybody's Anglican, but like here, it's like, yeah.
What I would say is, I think there's different ways in which you can come at this question. I want to be honest. There's people who come from outside of the culture who then look into black culture and they kind of look down upon it. So you might be black but didn't grow up in black spaces. You kind of say this black preaching stuff is kind of isn't what I'm about. That wasn't actually me. I grew up in the middle of all of it. And I was telling people the way that I speak now is how I spoke when I was in Huntsville, Alabama. And I want to say is you have to be who God made you to be, not an imitation of someone else. And there's a tremendous pressure to conform, but I would say that pressure is not the Holy Spirit. And you have to learn how to discern what it is God called you to do. And it's okay to appreciate the beauty of something and see that you don't exactly fit the mold. And so I guess what I want to say is like find space for your own independence. And one of the things that happens, and this is the tricky part. Just because you're different, it doesn't mean that you can condemn the thing that you're different from. And that's the part that I think people have to wrestle with. Just because you don't fit in something, like, you know, you might say like, oh man, I don't play sports. I like Dungeons and Dragons. Those athletes are meatheads. Or you can say, you know, like, I don't play Dungeons and Dragons, you know. So my son, I was a football player growing up. My son doesn't play football. My son does D&D. And, you know, that I'd never been a part of that, but I had to give him space to be him. And so I guess I would say you need to find your own voice, be authentic with it. And if God has called you to it, he will use it in his own good time. And actually, I think it's almost like some of the best coaches, and this is for me, some of the best coaches couldn't play football, couldn't actually play. And because they couldn't play, they can describe and explain what is actually happening. And a lot of times the best athletes don't make very good coaches because it's intuitive to them. And I think as a writer, what I couldn't do, I could describe really vividly. And if God has given you the gift of description and artistic sensibility, then you have to like hone and develop that gift instead of trying to trace to somebody else's future. But they don't pay you to do that though, so you just got to be broke.
Well, I appreciate the creativity in which you write this book as well. Speaking of creativity, you speak a lot about how good of a football player you were. Was there some creative license in how good you actually were? I'm just asking. You know, when I tell stories about playing in the high school and the opportunity to play in college, I'm like, yeah, man, I was almost on my way to the league, but
No,
my ankle.
Hold on now. What we're not going to do on God's internet is lie, because I was about that business. That's what I'm talking about.
I'm just asking.
Don't.
I'm letting the collar is getting in the way. The collar is getting in the way of me believing that you were really knocking heads off.
The what?
The collar, the priestly collar.
Listen, man. Don't. Everybody's been. You know something? You write a whole book. This is why you shouldn't have friends. You write a whole book. And the amount of people who have said I am lying about how good I was in football. This is like, it's only my friends. It's like, Esau, you wasn't about that life. What are you talking about? I was being recruited by Tennessee, Southern Miss, Alabama, all of these. I was that guy.
Well, I just did some research, and it finds out that you were not recruited by Tennessee. No, I was playing.
I'm about to say, I did add a couple of colleges in there. Alabama did not recruit me.
Yeah. All right. So does anybody have a question? We have a question over here.
Hey, my name's Chris. I'm a high school English teacher, and I teach memoir writing with seniors in high school. And so I've worked with a lot of students on this process of using the elements of creative nonfiction, where it's like you're kind of writing, using dialogue and setting description and all those kinds of things in memoir writing. We read a lot of different things, but one of them is like Tara Westover's Educated, where while she's using these creative means of telling her story, she also has lots of footnotes about, like, I'm not really sure if this is exactly what happened. So my main question is, what are some of the creative liberties? Like, are there places where, like, Joe was joking about it, but places where you kind of got into hazier areas with your memory? What was that process like?
I would say,
because you were very descriptive at times. You were like, this, like it was. You talk about how much money you had in your bank account, like.
Oh, that's exactly true.
I was like, exactly true. You remember exactly the amount?
I looked at it.
Okay.
Now, this is what I would say. Well, sorry, it was roughly true. It was like a couple of dollars. I might have been wrong, but like in my brain, I'll answer the question.
Okay.
This is true.
Yeah.
I think it was it $2.17? I feel like it was.
Yeah, you said $62.17.
I remember getting the $60 out.
I'm sorry. I'm taking you way off the question.
Sorry. Anyways, I will say this. One of the things that the person said to me is like, think about your body and think about the scene. And so obviously I'm closing my eyes and I'm thinking about what I remember it looking like. But obviously that's a composite scene. So if I say I'm in this neighborhood and I see a trash bag blow by, it's because I saw that all of the time in my neighborhood.
Absolutely.
One of the things that it actually helped me understand was actually the gospel writers. Because the gospel writers just lived with Jesus all of the time, and they traveled in and around Judea, and they could just describe it because they grew up in it. And so a lot of the physical descriptions are me thinking about, well, what did this look like? Now, whether or not it looked like it on that day is kind of immaterial. Some of the things that actually occur in the story, I wasn't born for. So like my mom's, the way she looked and those things are me recounting someone else's story. When it comes to my dialogue, it's once again what I remember saying. Yeah. But of course, that's not completely accurate because, if my wife was sitting here by what we said yesterday, we would disagree about the conversation. So I want to say it's my best recollection. But I would say, as it relates to key elements, I try not to make anything up. Yeah. And so, for example, there's a scene where I talked about a person who dies when I was getting ready to go to college. And I actually went and I said, did this actually happen? I knew he died. Did it happen the day that I was going to college? And I went and Googled the news story, and it was actually that Saturday when we went away to college. Yeah. And so when it came down to these key events, I went back and looked online to make sure that like my memory was solid. But obviously, there are times where I'm thinking about, or even there's a line where I'm talking about what my mom said to me when I interacted with the police. That's just a representative conversation that we had 1,000 times.
Yeah.
And so I guess what I wanted to say is I felt like I owed it to the reader not to lie to them, and that I never thought that I was writing fiction, and that I did the best that I could. And sometimes I compared it with 2 or 3 different people, and sometimes we had different memories of what occurred, and I went with my version sometimes with other people's version. And so that's kind of and there's like, I guess the other thing that's really interesting is there's more kind of sensational stuff that I could have put in there that I didn't feel completely comfortable that I had the truth of it that is actually not in the book. So I did the best that I could, and I tried not to create creative license. But I'm like 90% positive that the thing about the money was true. That was the day I proposed, and I remember taking $60 out. It might have been $3. It was less than 5. I knew it was not a big enough denomination that I couldn't have taken 70 out. And so I remember it very vividly.
No, it's all good. We still love you, Esau. You don't have to. But I had a situation where I had to remove something out of my book because I recalled the story a certain way, and I guess the editor thought it could be contentious because it was around Louis Farrakhan, and I had been telling this story for about 7 years, and he did research on it. And he was like, "Hey, that's not how it actually happened," and I was like, "Really?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I've been telling everybody that this is how it went down."
Yes, I think if you read the very end, I actually described how I did the research.
Oh, okay.
And I told them I could be wrong in places, but I did the best that I could.
Yeah.
And so there are places where I'm doing the best that I can, especially when you're in like the 1920s. There's parts of this book that takes in the 1920s.
Yeah.
And there's stuff around land that like it just everybody's dead. And so you do the best that you can.
You look young for somebody writing about the 1920s. Right? Thank you. Is there another question? That was a quick hand, so go ahead. Both of you guys. So just.
My question is that you are writing about like cultural issues that really that we have to push into, but you're doing that from a pastor's heart or that kind of framework. And I just wondered if you could share with us like some of those tension points where you've been like, oh man, like I want to fight more, but like, the gospel of Jesus and forgiveness and kind of the foundation, so there's been a tension in yourself as you've had to kind of navigate that space.
Yeah, I would say there's a reason that my father's at the center of this story. And because he's the one who made me like this. Because of the things that he did, it would be easy to hate him. But that hate was not useful. Yeah. And I didn't. One of the hard things when someone treats you bad is to hold intention, accountability, and grace. And so I didn't want to wish away the bad things that he did, but I could also say I didn't want that to be the end of his story. And so in finding like compassion for my father, which is probably one of the hardest things I've ever done, the reason that a racial conversation is stacked on top of that is that same compassion I kind of extend out to the rest of humanity. What I mean by that, I have to be able to say, the way that you treat us is wrong, but this doesn't have to be the end of your story. And for me, one of the hardest things every theologian has an issue that they wrestle with throughout most of their lives. It kind of marks their spiritual journey. And for me, it's hope. One of the hardest things for me to have is hope that things could ever be different than the way that they were. Hope that I wouldn't always be in the neighborhood of the community that I was. Hope that America wouldn't always be the way that it is. And I have struggled a lot with hope, but for me, the thing that keeps nihilism at bay is the gospel. And it's nothing special about me. It's just that whenever I have needed it, kind of the spiritual wellspring of what I believe about Jesus has been present to help me show grace where I wouldn't have it of my own accord.
Excellent.
I was just going to say I'm a third grade teacher, and when I've been able to buy the book Josie Johnson and His Hair and the Holy Spirit and give it to a lot of my students over the years. So just thank you.
Thank you for that work. Yeah.
There's three more kids books coming, already written.
All right.
Breaking news.
Breaking news. You've heard it here first on Show Baraka Show. Look at that. Look what I'm bringing to you guys. He's coming to Hutchmoot next year. You get 3 more books. I mean, this is worth the price of
And a
admission.
kid's Bible. And a kid's Bible.
And a kid's Bible. Do you have time to see your family?
Well, actually, really briefly,
Your wife is in the. Go ahead.
in the military.
Yeah.
I wrote the kids book, and it's about my daughter, my oldest daughter, Claire. And the other kids are complaining, saying, why does my one daughter get a book? So literally to have peace in my family, I signed a 3-book contract. So each kid, there's a fictional account of the Johnson family, is what they're called. And it's centered around each one of the kids, who are roughly the age of my kids when I signed the contract. That's the reason why there's 4 books. It's no more.
But by the time they come out, they're gonna be like, these books are lame.
Yeah, like
'Cause
my
they're
son
gonna be
15 now.
Yeah, he's gonna be like, oh.
He was in his feelings like 5 years ago, 3 years ago when I did it.
Excellent question here.
Yeah, hey, Dr. McCaulley. I read your book, Reading Why Black. It was great. And I just bought your new book, and I'm going to have Show sign it.
I'll sign it for her. Yes. Don't worry about it. Don't worry. I do it all the time. I sign Bibles too, so.
I'll sign your books if somebody comes over with them.
I'm just a white mom in Indy, but I'm trying to get an AND campaign chapter started there. I know that both of you guys are associated with that org some way, or and Justin Gibney's coming to Indy at the end of October. How do you think groups like that, help the conversation and coming into a contentious year, and what can we do to further their...
I'll take this. I think Show was one of the founders of the AND campaign. And so he is one of the OGs. But I will say this. I love the fact that the AND campaign exists because it allows me to stay in my lane. What I mean by that is that I think that God has given different organizations, different people, different gifts. And so although I often get called to talk about politics, I'm closer to Show and being an artist than I am a pundit. And so you would rarely ever hear me talk about detailed policy. Like don't shoot black people is kind of like my political platform.
That's what we're running on. That's what we're running on, yeah.
I mean, you'd be shocked how many articles you can write that say shooting black people is bad. But anyways, I'll put that to the side. And I would say one of the things that I like about what Justin and the rest of the AND campaign does is they give cogent political analysis rooted in a kind of Christian way of being in the world that allows, this is my selfish thing, that allows me to stay in my lane.
Absolutely.
And I think that what I would say is the gospel isn't only its political implications, but it's not less than that. And so I would say that some of the things that I would say that there's a lot of people, because of the way they see Christianity being misused politically, it's spiritually traumatizing, and it's driving people away from the faith. And I would say not that they kind of solve one partisanship with another partisanship, but they model a Christian way of being in the world that I find is worthy of my respect. And in that sense, I just often just point people in that direction. And it gives other people the freedom. Because one of the things when you are a Black public individual, like Show and myself, people expect you to be able to do everything. You can be a counselor, an economist, a theologian, a political pundit, a therapist. And I'm not omnicompetent. And I think that what they're doing over there is really important.
And many of us have to have the humility to say, like, I'm not the person to speak to this. And it could be very advantageous, especially if you're a Black male or a woman who gets invited to predominantly white or Asian, whatever spaces, and it feels intoxicating to be like, oh, they want me. But I'm speaking on things that I'm really not an authority on. But I would say in a practical way, I would say galvanize other churches and other organizations that are like-minded with you, because one thing I know they typically don't do is launch chapters without there being some sort of swell of people who can work across hopefully diverse church lines as well. So I think we have time for a couple more questions.
This question is for both of you.
If you can speak up just a little bit louder.
Earlier you talked about the difference between racial advocacy versus racial voyeurism. Sometimes I find that people are very well intended, but they still fall into the latter, or they do racial appropriation. So in cases like that, where I think it's very tempting to just say, well, my intentions were good, I really meant to do good, what is a wise response to that as an artist?
As an artist?
Well, and as whoever you are.
Yeah. I'll let you answer it first.
Can you repeat that? I didn't hear.
So
it. Can you-
basically, when we spoke earlier, I asked the question about racial advocacy versus racial voyeurism, and she's saying oftentimes people are well-intentioned in their attempts to engage, but what happens when even in their well-intentions that they may lean towards appropriation or voyeurism? How do you manage that particular situation? How do you engage these individuals in correct behavior, I guess you can say?
For me, I think that it's really about the posture. We think about what somebody else does, right?
Yeah.
It's really about the posture of the person who kind of makes the mistake. I'm assuming she's talking about like someone in the white community getting into justice work and kind of making some missteps. And the real question is like whether or not it's triumphalistic. One of the things that really frustrates me about like certain kind of Christian justice advocacy is they think they're the first ones to thought of this stuff. And they could be kind of in a closer to burn the place down mode.
Yeah.
And can you still hear me? Oh, sorry, you were just still for a second. You scared me. Okay. No, they could be. I would say that sometimes the over exuberance of new information can outrun wisdom.
Yeah.
And sometimes when African Americans who've been in this fight for a long time know that you can't get everything in one day, we feel like we have to say, hold on, like calm down.
Yeah.
Let's make some progress. And the real question is whether or not you're correctable. And whether or not when you get involved in the work, you have to be a leader. If you're willing to actually listen to and be corrected by ethnic minorities. Because there's a paternalism that is possible even by people who consider themselves racially conscious.
Yeah,
where the black person, and this is what I want to say happens a lot. And I should write an article about this. I don't know how to do it because it will just get me canceled. But black people are often weapons in the white conservative liberal war.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And like this drafting our pain to leverage your own spiritual crisis and then to hurl us at your spiritual enemies. And so giving us freedom to be ourselves is a constant battle that I think that Black Christians struggle with. And whether or not people are willing to be corrected. Because folks be citing me for stuff that I don't even believe or say.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I'd be like, I don't even know how you got that from what you just read, but that wasn't what I was saying at all.
Yeah. I would. Henry Nouwen has a quote that I just love. He and I may butcher it a little bit, but he says that hospitality is creating a space where change can happen and not forcing change. I know that we are called agents of reconciliation, and Christians do not have the luxury to remove themselves from it. For a long period of time, many years, I was like, you know what? If you have a question, I'm not your book. I'm not your yada yada. Don't ask me. And then the reality is if there are people who are genuinely interested in engaging and learning, how do I invite them into a space where I know they may ask something ridiculous but still have room to correct and to engage? Because here's the deal. We don't often talk about this, and Esau hinted at it, about the whatever pathologies may exist in Black communities. We have our own prejudices, we have our own behaviors. And it's interesting, I'm talking to you as an Asian woman. I grew up in California, and for many years of my life, I just saw Asians as this trope. I was like, oh, you guys are just valedictorians. You know what I'm saying? And it wasn't until my adult life that I had a Korean friend, and let me ask some dumb questions. And do I have the liberty to do that? And I want that kind of, I would love to extend that kind of grace to people who come as humble learners and not triumphant, like, hey, I want to save the day. But the other thing I want to quickly say is that oftentimes oftentimes the justice conversation is not just hijacked by people who have interest, white folks who have interest on the left and the right, but for black folks who just found out that they're black. And
that's what I was trying to get at earlier, is that like I grew up in this,
right, yeah,
and I'm not trying to like other or essential,
right.
But this is what I'm gonna say. I didn't grow up in evangelical spaces. Experienced a racial moment in 2016.
Exactly.
Have like a crisis. Figured out racism was wrong and started yelling at
And you read Ta-Nehisi Coates and you were like,
yeah, no. I'm one of the things that like, because you talk about presenting, right?
Yeah.
Like you talk about the way that you grew up and like, you know, you did dungeon, like
Yeah.
you kind of you're so like I don't present as someone now who was where I'm from.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I don't have a crisis of whether or not I'm authentically black.
Exactly.
I have zero spiritual crisis.
Exactly.
And I said, and so like when I say like, man, listen, you don't get to essentialize blackness as theological revisionism coming from racial consciousness.
Hey.
Because that ain't the only way that we do it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that you can't like have a different theology than me and be black. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that posture is just simply not true.
Yeah.
And just because there aren't 50,000 people from black communities with big social media followings, it doesn't mean. So when I wrote Reading While Black, some of this stuff ain't in footnotes because I was there.
I'm the source.
I was black church.
Yeah.
I didn't go and look at like James Cleveland sermons and,
Right.
No, I was in the streets.
Yeah.
And so I can just say, I can say like with real authenticity, I was in them black churches in Alabama.
Well, let me ask you this question, and hopefully briefly, because even the idea of deconstructing faith or decolonizing faith, I was having a conversation with some friends, and I was like, it's interesting. Nobody in my circles, no black Christians in my circles were walking around believing in the Jesus of Norway. Like none of us was like, so what are we decolonizing? I don't understand. Like, I'm like.
This is what I want to say. This is actually, and I'll put it a little bit differently. There were black people in Alabama who were saying that the Jesus who exists in society is a colonizer. Therefore, I'm going to join the Nation of Islam. Or I'm going to become an atheist. There was black nationalism.
Yeah.
So what we would call kind of racial consciousness leading to deconstruction was happening, or religious reimagining was happening in black communities, and they were the black nationalists who were in Huntsville, in Alabama.
Absolutely.
So I knew about the people who say Christianity is a white man religion.
Right.
Jesus came to you on chains.
My
so
stepfather was a Nation of Islam Muslim.
Right.
Yeah.
The 5%ers, all of this stuff, right?
All of that.
And so I knew about that. So I became a Christian in the context where if you're going to talk about Jesus, you always had to have your ear turned to my black nationalist brothers and sisters who are on your political left.
Yeah.
And King did too.
Yeah.
King knew about the Black Power movement, so he couldn't be half-stepping about racial injustice. And so what I want to talk about is like this religious landscape, and there were black quietist people who were like, you know, sitting off to the side, who were just so church they weren't in the world. And so that religious spectrum of nationalism leading to agnosticism, to quietism and separatism, to an engaged Christian political religious activism that was rooted in orthodoxy was my religious milieu.
Yeah.
And so when I then arrive into popular culture and I am told that the only proper black response is one stream of the black Christian tradition, I can just say from experience, you are lying to the people.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Anyway, you got me worked up. It's too early.
Hey, do you know Tedashii at all?
No.
I
I don't know nobody, man. I'm sitting up in here teaching these Bible classes, man.
Yeah. So you've never met him? You've never met him at all?
Ta-Nehisi Coates?
I said Tedashii.
Oh, Tedashii. I thought you said Ta-Nehisi. No, I don't know Tedashii. I don't know him either. I never met him personally.
Okay, because I'm about to interview him right now. I was about to bring you.
Tell him to pull up.
Wait, so hold on. This is how we pull up right now. I'm gonna bring him on, and just because I'm about to send you off into the sunset and then bring him on. but I just wanted you guys to meet each other because
Good. I'm gonna have 2 rappers on here, and I'm
Yes.
gonna make. I know y'all are more than rappers.
I don't consider that. I was about to say, don't call me just a rapper. That's you know.
I knew that. You rap.
Fix
Okay.
it.
One of the things that you do is that you have bars.
Yeah, but I'm also. I like to think that I'm somewhat of an intellectual.
You're an intellectual. Listen, I invited you to come speak. I didn't invite you to come rap.
Oh, there he goes. Look at him. Look at him.
I'm going to put this out to the entire Christian hip hop community. I've been putting out all of this black content. I can't get one bar, like nothing around to Esau.
All right, so this is when we kick you off.
I can't get one bar.
This is where we kick you off. Okay.
This is what I walked into. This is what
I can't get one bar.
All right. Well, first of all, ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Esau McCaulley. Go get his book. Brother, thank you for your wisdom and insight, and we'll tap in later.
I appreciate both of y'all's music, your ministry, your writing, your entrepreneurship. God bless y'all. Goodbye.
Amen. I just wanted y'all to meet each other. I wanted y'all to
Good to meet you.
Yeah.
You too, bro. I appreciate it for real. We gonna link soon.
Sounds great. Pull up.
Anglican piece saying pull up. Look at that.
It's a different world, man.
It's a different world now. This is what happens when, you just give Negroes some opportunity. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have the privilege of having a conversation with my friend. And I say that for real. Like, we've been knowing each other before we were ever known to the world. Tedashii Anderson. He has many albums. I can't remember how many he has. But he is also an actor, voice. If you need some voice acting, this man's voice is beautiful. Go ahead one more time.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
There you go. Keith David. I don't know that reference. But
John Carpenter's The Thing?
one more.
Big Trouble, not Big Trouble, the other one. They Live?
Okay, we're gonna move on. So
Sorry, I just made it real nerdy.
the name sounds familiar, but anyway.
Goliath on Gargoyles.
Once again, so we're gonna. However, if you have listened to my audio book, then you've heard his voice. Ladies and gentlemen, if you can just give a round of applause for Tedashii.
I know you know who Keith David is.
Keith David, who? Help me.
He was the dad in ATL. He was the.
Oh yeah, see you the wrong reference.
La La
Wrong
Dad.
reference. The wrong reference.
I made all these nerdy horror references.
Yeah.
My bad.
Is he the voice in The Princess and the Frog?
Yes.
Yes.
He's the villain in that.
You gave me all the wrong references now.
Sorry, man.
A bunch of references I ain't never heard of. She was like, the gargoyle and the spam or something like that. I don't know.
He's the dad in No.
See, there you go.
He's Kiki Palmer's dad in No.
Black stuff.
Okay.
You know what? I'm lying because I love white stuff too. Why am I sitting here acting like?
Team, why not both?
To what?
Team, why not both?
Nah, I'm not familiar with that though.
Just,
Oh, team, why not? Got you. Yes. All right, so Tedashii.
Yes.
I've tried to preface this conversation around just making much of the ordinary. And oftentimes we just celebrate the extraordinary that people do, but we don't give a lot of agency and love to just the slow consistency that people face. And one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on is not only are you an artist, but oftentimes artists create from the experiences that they have in life. And for those people who may know you, they know that you make great music, but around about 10 years ago, I think it was, you lost your son. Yeah. And that has informed a lot of how you write and how you create. So how could you help us as creatives and artists and writers? How do you, first talk about that experience, and then I'll ask a question about creating from that experience.
Yeah. Well, shout out to everybody who's listening and on the Zoom or in the classroom. Thank y'all for having me. Show, it's always an honor. Show is my real friend. Like, Show is the person who I encourage and make fun of. That's how you know we real friends.
Absolutely.
But yeah, 10 years ago, my wife and I, Danielle, we lost our son Chase. I was actually away at an event, and upon landing back home, I heard on the plane through a phone call the idea or the what had really happened, and the idea of that never really set in fully because the shock was so heavy. And I just remember, if you ever flown on a plane, whenever a plane lands, typically people are silent. They're not really as loud or verbose. You might have that one person that make a phone call, but really it's silent. And I disrupted that silence with wailing and punching the wall next to me because I could not believe what I was hearing. And it was probably in that or through that disbelief that I started to try to reconcile what my world would be like until I got to a place of acceptance. But even after arriving at a place of acceptance, I still wrestled with what life could have been like. And so music, art, all of that has been a way for me to bring about cathartic and creatively expressing myself in ways to bring a sense of shalom to my soul. Chase is the second son of four and is forever etched in my mind as the ball of joy with juicy cheeks. Like, that's all I can think about. I mean, if you ever met him, then you know, like, man, a kiss was gonna linger because all of the slob was gonna stay. It was gonna linger. You knew I had Chase. I held Chase.
Yeah.
And so that idea of him informs how I do my music. I want, when I talk about him, for his presence to linger with you. I don't want it to just be about a quick mention and then move on because I personally went through something. But Chase's life is real. He was here. He is still a part of our family. I always say I'm the proud father of 4 boys, not 3. And I'm always gonna say it's okay to talk about Chase because if he was here, we would talk about him. I'm not naive. Talking about loss and grief, especially when it comes to children, is not fun for anybody. But at the end of the day, as a parent, I'm like, man, I love talking about all my kids, even Chase. So I welcome and invite people to do so in respectful ways. So moments like this are helpful.
So how do you, just apart from the art in general, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's people in this room who've experienced great loss in different ways. What kind of advice do you have for us on how to process grief, how to embrace it, and how to hold, I guess, closely to God, even in our, as David often does in the Psalms, just screams and yells at God at the same time as he's like in his arms. How do we do that?
Yeah. So
how did you do it, maybe, and then how would you encourage us to do it?
Yeah. So when I hear questions like this, I think about how to process, and then I think about how to experience. I think the two are different. How you process it mentally, how you process it emotionally may be different than how you experience it, because experience sometimes bumps up against other humans. So I think it's like a two-sided coin. So for me, on my own and how I process it, I would encourage people to do the opposite of what I did and choose to be constructive rather than destructive. I was very constructive at the beginning because I didn't want people to think my faith was fake or false. It's like, no, Jesus is real. God is still good. Like, I'm out here, I'm killing it, and we're gonna be for God. And then 6 months after that, the bottom fell out, and I was like, screw everybody. I can't keep pretending I'm not hurt and pain isn't real. But in my processing of it, I wish and I pray people would adhere to the encouragement to be constructive. Go exercise, go talk to somebody. If you trust therapy, go to therapy. If you need a relative, go talk to a relative. If you want to find other people in your church or city that have lost children, go find them. But don't isolate yourself in the idea that it's only you going through it, because your connection to the community means they are as well. You are the one who is experiencing it, but you're not alone in it because you've already been connected to a community of people. So where you feel possible, invite them in. Now, that's me, how I would process, be constructive, not destructive. The experience of it among other people, what I've often found is those who go through a great loss of any kind, it doesn't have to be a child, it could be a parent or a sibling, a grandparent, a coworker, whoever it is, you end up realizing you as the one grieving will oftentimes have to be the one to consider the feelings of the people who showed up to consider you. It's like, man, I'm hurting, but because you're so awkward about how to engage me in this, I'm having to appease your fears and placate to your worries more so than being allowing you to love on me in this moment. So people would come up and they would always say like the phrase I heard the most was, man, I can only imagine. And I'm here like, yes, that's pretty obvious. You can only imagine. That's great. Though I know they mean that in a way of encouragement and comfort to say they're trying to relate, we've just been given such a poor understanding of how to love and walk alongside people who lose individuals that we end up being the people who suffer loss, end up being the people to teach them how to do it in the moment. And so I would say, and I know Sho relates to an extent, knowing loss with his father, if I can mention that, it's like, man.
Oh, you should not have mentioned that. Now I'm a wreck for the next 15 minutes.
Dang it. I'm sorry, bro. I didn't mean to activate you. I'm so sorry.
No,
but like, there's this moment where you just kind of go like, man, I want to help everybody out early on. So even with you in this moment, I preface my time with you like, no, I love talking about my boys, even Chase, so that you feel freedom in this. Yeah. And so I don't have to coach you anymore as we engage. So it's like, no, I'm gonna say up front, bro, you can talk about whatever you want. We can talk about whatever we want. You can ask whatever question you want. I am okay. When I wasn't okay with it, I would say, hey, feel free to ask me questions about Chase. That's fine, but don't ask me how it happened. Like, I would have to say that, because if I did it, someone would come with that question because they're curious. Even though it for you, it's like, no, why? How dare you? For them, it's like, well, I want to know what happened so I can try to help you better. But me setting the ground rules early gave them the framework on how to engage me. So I would just say, man, be mindful of when you bump into other people with experience, you might have to engage them up front with a preface of, here's what the ground rules are, because you're going to fumble, and just know we're still going to be friends after this.
So let me preface it with this. For those who don't know, in this room, I have 2 kids on the autism spectrum. And one of the things I noticed early was that when it comes to social media and engagement, there are certain things that people would engage easily versus certain things that they wouldn't. If I say, hey man, I'm reading this book, I'm reading a Silmarillion right now, folks would be like, oh, that's cool. But if I would post a picture with me doing something with my kids on the autism spectrum, everybody, oh my gosh, we need more of this. And that can create some sort of like, well, maybe I should post more about this and write more about this and create more about this. As an artist, how do you, I guess, dance on that line of wanting to write from your grief and your trauma and communicate, while also being honest with yourself and saying, am I really doing this in a way that is, like, I guess you can say that fits within my own ethics?
Yeah.
And doesn't violate the noble memory, if you will. And I'm not necessarily prostituting them for the means of gain. Yeah.
So early on, like a year after Chase passed, maybe a year and a half, I started working with a management group called 40 Deep Management. I know you're aware of them. And after 6 months of working with them, they said, hey man, your music's great, but we're trying to grow your career. We think it's time you write a book, man. Everyone's interested in your son's story. Everyone knows about it. It would be great. You'd make tons of money, blah, 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 blah. Now, they weren't demons. These men were humans. So they were mindful that it was a sensitive subject, which was true. But I recognized at the end of the day, they were not there to consider me as a person. They were there to consider me as an entity. And I had to defend my personhood and say, no, we're not going to do that. Not only that, but this story doesn't just involve me. It involves my wife. It involves my oldest son. It involves the grandparents. Like, I'm not just going to write a book about something that affects so many people because you guys would get 10% of whatever I brought in. Like, that's not going to happen. So those moments I definitely had to push back against. But it's also on the other side, those moments where I go, if I'm going to be truthfully an artist who represents what I'm about, then I got to talk about the hardship of loss. I got to talk about what it feels like to lose a child and try to be a Christian still. Like, all those things have to be addressed for me to really be my true self in the music. I could have put on a hat and just kept rapping about jumping around on stage yelling 116, but that would have been very false and it wouldn't have lasted. And so I knew I had to be true to myself in that way as well. So talking about chasing the music, it comes from a place of sincerity, and when it doesn't, then I don't talk about it.
Amen. All right, for the last 15 minutes, I'm going to bring up somebody else who these next couple questions I think are helpful. So if I can have Brother Author Supreme.
Someone in the room, okay.
Yeah, someone, he's gonna come and sit, and hopefully you'll be able to. Yeah, just sit right here. For the people who will be watching this video later, and for you as well, let me try to turn this a little. Oh, there you go. You can kind of see. I'll just say Pete, or A.S. Peterson, is
Author Supreme.
Is the writer of a wonderful theater production, The Hiding Place, based on the life of Corrie ten Boom and her family. He also he was at one point in time the executive director of the Rabbit Room, who hosts these events, but now he is over publishing and over the theater. And so the question I want to ask you two, and first of all, congratulations on meeting one another once again.
Yes, very much so. I'm honored. Author Supreme.
So I want to ask a question for both of you guys, and maybe Pete, you can answer this first, and then Tedashii. What is the beauty and the ugliness of being a Christian artist? What is beautiful about being a Christian artist?
Well, that one's easy for me.
But then also, what is the ugliness? Not only just the social ugliness, but also maybe the industry stuff, like some of the business aspect.
Man, that's a good question. I think that it's easier for me to answer the first part, the beauty. I mean, I believe this stuff, you know? Like, it's pretty frequent, I'll turn to my wife and say, do we really believe this crazy stuff? Like, we believe crazy things, but they're crazy, beautiful things. And the more I think about it, the more I come down on the side of like, yep, I believe it. And that needs to change everything about the way that I interact with the world.
Yeah.
So I get really excited about that when I'm writing stories. Like, I want to infuse all of it with, you know, kind of a sense of, yeah, this is the real world, but there is an epic thing that's happening in the midst of the ordinary, if that makes sense. And I think all my writing tends to lean that way. I think my wife often points out that, like, you're doing that thing again. You're starting on solid ground, and then by the end of what you're working on, it's taken off and becomes something eternal. You know, like, because I'm trying, because that's what I want to do. Like, I want to point at something that's bigger than we recognize in our everyday lives. So that comes pretty easy to me for whatever reason, and I love the beauty of the gospel. I love the beauty of the whole idea of the new creation. You know, I came up in a theology that was much more of I'll fly away. You know, like, you know, all this is going to burn. We're just waiting to get into heaven.
Great beyond,
kind of stuff. Yeah, and you know, the more I matured, the more I really leaned into the reality of the gospel, that everything is being made new, and like, we're not going to necessarily just die and go to heaven. It's more complicated than that. Heaven is coming to us. You know, the end point of all of this is that heaven and earth are united into something new that we haven't seen yet. And man, that gets me excited. And so yeah, that's the beautiful thing. And the ugliness of it is, it's, I mean, for me, I think especially in the context of the writing of my plays, The Hiding Place in particular, it's like figuring out, like, okay, I believe all that stuff. How does it interact with the real world in which a Holocaust can happen? You know? How does it interact with the real world in which slavery happens, so that's the ugly part to me, is getting down in the trenches and kind of wrestling with, do I really believe what I say I believe? And if it's true, what does that mean about the world around me? And so it's complicated.
Yeah.
And if it's not complicated, it's not true.
If it's not complicated, it's not true. Come on now.
That's sage wisdom right there. That if it's not complicated, it's not true. That's real, bro.
Yeah.
I wouldn't tweet it or exit. I don't know. What do you say now? Exit? Do you exit now as far as Twitter?
As long as you don't truth
X. You exit. Well, to piggyback off of that, one, I would not change a thing. I think that was well said.
But
on the other side, right. On the other side of your question, I think what makes my experience as a creative, could you hear that? You could hear that noise, that loud noise?
No.
Oh, awesome. Okay, so my laptop scared me. Cool. So being a creative, it's like, man, I'm engaging the workplace or this industry with my art from the stance of the art is not just through a lens of being a Christian. I am a Christian who made art through the lens of being a Christian. Now I'm taking it to this marketplace that does not have that same lens. So I have to try to engage them and hope that they are for me, regardless of what they agree about me or disagree with about me. And I've had to learn, just because I have this amazing message doesn't mean that it's to them an amazing product. It still has to be to them an amazing product. And I also had to learn, just because you're doing business with people who say they believe what you believe, it doesn't mean they carry the same convictions. That in the workplace environment, in doing business deals with one another, they carry the same values and principles as you do when it comes to considering you. Like Paul says, we consider no one as according to the flesh. It's like, man, I came into this room seeing you as a spiritual being having a physical experience. You could care less about what I am. You just want to have a good product because you have money invested. And I'm going, that's heartbreaking. Like the whole time we was at lunch, it was Bible verse this and brother in the Lord that, and man, I believe this, and what church is this? And now it's like all that disappeared. And I feel like I've set myself up to be heartbroken at the end of all of this.
Sound like you've been to Nashville a couple times.
Yeah, I've been to Nashville a couple times. Babylon a couple times.
Both of you guys, I didn't know if you were finished.
I am done. Yeah. No.
Both of you guys have done a wonderful job of building Christian community. Like the Rabbit Room it's something I envy. Honestly, and that's why I come all the time, because I think it's a wonderful community of people who share a wonderful sentiment on not only how to do art, but how to love Jesus. Obviously, I've been a part of the community that you helped establish with the 116 crew, which has expanded, obviously, outside of just a group of young black brothers who wanted to rap. Now it's people who put tattoos in stupid places. It's like, I'm like, you probably shouldn't have done that. Because, but anyway, there are some of us, not the artists, I'm talking about fans.
Yes. No, mine's right here. It's on my phone.
There you go. There are people probably here who will watch who, man, like, one, I either want to be a part of a community or I want to try to create community. What are some things some good, I guess, to say, principles that you would encourage them as far as like the need for community as an artist, but not just only as an artist, especially today as we are so distrustful of institutions as a society, to be a part of just good fellowship.
Yeah.
Ready, set, go.
I went first last
Tedashii
time.
went to sleep.
No. I literally am thinking, I'm like, man, and you did AS. I think AS stands for actually saved. That brother saved.
You don't know me very well.
One of the things that comes to mind when you ask that question about community is being forthright with what it is that you need with yourself and then with other people when you engage. I think a lot of times we engage, Christians tend to engage other Christians like we are in this social engagement as a whole. But I had to take on the identity that I'm in warfare and I'm looking for other soldiers who are in the war with me. And if you're not willing to walk into the trenches, then someone else will. Not to say I can't be kind, cordial, and engaged where necessary, but community actually gathering around the teachings of the apostles, having all and sharing all things in common in my personal life, but then also in a broader sense, people who would identify with my own personal values, struggles, beliefs. Those are the people who I'm looking for. So I'm very vocal about the stuff that I value. So I'm like, I'm going to talk about my son, Chase. I'm going to deal with things that I personally wrestle with. And I'm going to be the person that is probably way more of like the dirty old man on the porch yelling out whatever he wants to yell, because I've gotten to that place in my life. And I'm like, if you're not comfortable around that, then you're not going to be a part of my world. It's just what it is. What it is.
The dirty old man, maybe the grumpy old man. Like, let's say you're dirty.
Forget different words mean different things.
Yeah, because I think I understand what you're saying, but dirty can also mean kind of, a little sexual assault.
Like grungy old man.
Okay, yeah. I thought just inappropriate. That's what I thought. But I know that's not your life. You know what I'm saying? We don't prophesy that. Shandala bobo. All right. Yeah, there you go. You've been freed. You've been liberated.
Well, I've never been accused of being grumpy. But yeah, it's a hard question to answer because, like the Rabbit Room, we've been doing this kind of creative, faith-based community thing for 15 years, and I think there's a sense in which we still don't know what we're doing, and that might sound like a bad answer.
Well, no, maybe that's like, how do you feel liberty and like still trying to figure it out while actually building the plan that you're playing?
Yeah. Well, I think the Holy Spirit works in places where you admit you don't know what you're doing, right? And so, our whole sort of posture, I think, in the Rabbit Room for years has been, well, that sounds like a good idea. Let's try it and see what happens. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You guys usually don't hear about the things that don't work, because they go away. But I really think the Holy Spirit moves in those things, and you just kind of follow it one step at a time. But I think it does start with a sense of hospitality for the people around you. I think it starts with a sense of, I'm constantly aware that it's easy to fall into a trap where people think they've got the magic sauce and I need some of it. And I think that's a misconception that we frequently try to disabuse people of, because the reality is the Holy Spirit's the secret sauce. And we've all got that. It's about learning to listen to that and find how the Holy Spirit is moving you in your community with the people that the Lord has placed in your life. And yeah, the Rabbit Room is beautiful here in Nashville. It's beautiful in Charlotte. It's beautiful in Texas. There's pockets all over the place, but it looks different in all these places.
Yeah.
And if we're trying to put a stamp on it and say, oh, this is the formula, this is how you do it, I just don't think it's not going to work out well.
Yeah.
So I think it's more about listening and paying attention to what's around you. And, it's not, and I say that coming from a place of having lived a lot of my life in a place where I felt creatively starved. Like nobody knows what I'm going through right now. Nobody understands why I want to write this book. And if only I had other people around me that understood it, everything would be okay. So I get that it's not as easy as it sounds. But I look back now and I'm so thankful for all of the people that were around me during those periods of my life, because I needed them to become the person that I am. Even though I didn't want that at the time. So, yeah, I think paying attention has a lot to do with it.
All right, so instead of asking you, Tedashii, can you give us your social media account? Because I won't be able to allow them to ask you a question here, but if they want to engage, like, hey man, I really want to ask you a question around this, how can they get in contact with you?
Yeah, my everything is at Tedashii. So my name is Dashii, and you can find me everywhere with that. So,
All right, so
yeah.
I have a speed round of questions that I'm going to ask both of you guys, and I need to rapid fire in this last couple minutes.
Yeah.
And, all right. So, first question for both of you guys. You know, you're stuck in, you know, I guess you can say, in isolation for a month. Nah, 6 months. What book are you reading?
War and Peace.
War and Peace. He's not finishing that book. Yeah, he need a whole year for that one.
Yeah, bro.
You, what book?
What happened to you?
What happened to you? My counselor recommended that book to me, and I still haven't.
It changed my life.
I still haven't picked it up.
Who's
Just
it
because.
by?
Huh?
Who's the author?
Oprah Winfrey and who else?
Dr. Bruce Perry.
Yeah. The premise is, instead of telling people what's wrong with you, you say what happened to you. So, all right. So, other than The Hiding Place, what film? If you can only watch one film for 6 months, what film? All right, and if you ever have a chance to watch the Tedashii. So here, real quick, I am writing a musical myself, ladies and gentlemen, and it will be premiering in Tedashii's hometown of Houston sometime next year, and the hope is to actually have him as one of the actors on stage. So he's a wonderful actor. He actually has a wonderful singing voice too. He sang at my wedding. He sang at my wedding. Tried to steal the show, but at one point I was like, okay, brother, hurry up. So anyway, yes. What film would you watch for 6 months straight?
Man.
Remember the Titans?
There's that football link right there.
Yeah. Is there a football? There's football somewhere in the background, or?
No, just from
Oh, it used to be. I had a bunch of Baylor stuff.
Oh, I didn't. What did you say?
Football. Didn't he have a background of wanting to go to the NFL?
Yeah, but he wasn't good enough. So I'm just. No, I think he played at Baylor for a very short time.
Yeah, very much so. Very short.
Yeah. Yeah. How about you?
The answer to this would be different every 5 minutes when you ask me.
Okay.
At the moment, I'm going to say The Thin Red Line by Terrence Malick. I just never get tired of it.
You look like a Terrence Malick kind of
Of
guy.
course I do.
Yeah, I feel like everybody
He's
in
like
the
the
room is like,
director,
yeah, Terrence Malick is. All right. Apart from my albums and Tedashii's albums, and Andrew Peterson's albums, what album would you listen to on repeat for 6 months?
Miseducation of Lauryn Hill.
Hey. All right. You gotta
Man.
top that. I mean, you can't, but.
Taylor Swift's Red album. I mean, I'm tempted to say that because I love it.
You look so disappointed in him, Sean.
I know I'm in Tennessee right now, so I can't say too much. But I'm kind of like, what? No, I love Taylor Swift.
No, I'll go with. Oh my gosh, I would probably go with Springsteen's "Born to Run."
Yes.
Yeah.
That is a great album.
Yeah.
Stop acting like you know.
Oh, you tripping, bro. Springsteen.
Nah, I know. You grew up in the country. I'm pretty sure you.
Yeah, Springsteen is phenomenal, bro. I got to see him live in Dallas. Oh my God. This dude is amazing, bro.
I'm not shocked that you're saying this right now. Nothing of this is shocking me that you are a Springsteen fan.
He's dope, bro.
Yeah, I wouldn't use the word dope, but yes, he's good. I'm just joking. I'm just playing. I just recently started falling in love with Bob Dylan, so I guess we can. Yeah,
There you go.
I got it.
There you go.
All right, so you got 6 months, but you can only eat one meal. What is that meal you're eating?
Baja burrito salad.
A Baja burrito salad.
I would eat it every day for the rest of my life.
Okay, is that a?
It's a local Mexican place.
Oh, okay.
All fresh, all local stuff.
Gotcha.
It's amazing.
How about you, Tedashii? What do you eat for 6 months?
Sushi.
Sushi, I like that. You are my sushi guy. You're my sushi guy. Huh? All right, so last question is, you got to take care of yourself in this 6 months. So we all have some sort of self-care practice. What is the self-care practice that you're going to consistently do for 6 months? It can be strange. It can be whatever.
There's so many. There's so many.
I mean, I'm famously good at yoga. You want me to show you?
I believe, yeah. Just as much as I believe him as a Springsteen fan, I believe you in yoga.
He offered. We need to see it.
I mean, we can get some vasanas and some,
I don't know if we got room in here.
some Shonda rhymes and all that stuff. That's all.
6 months consistent. I would probably say meditation.
Okay, but what type of meditation is it like?
It would be word. It'd be word association meditation. So I sit and I think of a word. Primarily, I think of like a passage from scripture, and then I think of the word associated with that passage, the next word, and the goal is just stay focused on those words. Most of the time, I pick one word and do it, but sometimes I'll do passages.
Ladies and gentlemen.
One with hope.
Oh,
The most recent hope. Yeah, go ahead.
The most recent was, I'm sorry, one more time.
The most recent one was hope. So I just
okay.
meditated on that word and kept going from there.
Bro, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sorry for the time miscommunication, but you are a blessing to the church, and we thank you. We love you. Also, after the stage, blessings to you. Thank you, and man, have a wonderful day, sir.
You got it.
All right.
God bless you.
God bless you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm in the gun. So, yeah, so I have one more album to give out. I just need one person to be a brave soul. One brave soul. Okay. What's your name?
Brenda.
Brenda. I have a question to ask you.
Yeah.
Brenda. All right. Let me see. This individual in history. What? Look, see, don't you can't back out now.
I'm not backing out.
Okay, this individual in history was beloved in the black community, was fought against oppressive systems, was a wonderful leader, but was senselessly assassinated. Who am I speaking of? That's a good guess. And I would say wrong. Would you like to take another guess?
Can I phone a friend?
The second guess, you have to phone a friend? Okay, phone a friend. Phone a friend.
Oh, Malcolm X.
Oh, Malcolm X. Wrong. Would you like to phone another? Somebody, I heard somebody say something.
JFK.
RFK is a wonderful guess. I'm going to say wrong. Robert Kennedy.
Oh, Robert.
She's like, who? What?
I'm kidding.
Would you like to take another one? Amen. I hear you. Hey, would you like one more? I'm going to give you one more guess. So it's not Martin Luther King. It's not MLK.
Jesus? Yeah.
Well, how can I say no to that?
I didn't know.
Yeah, I would actually say yes to Jesus, but the answer is Tupac. The answer is like there's 7 of them, so I was just no matter who you said, I would have said wrong. Right? Hey, thank you guys for hanging out with me. It was a blessing. It was a beauty. Have a wonderful conference, and God bless you guys. Oh, and by the way, you can still grab these up.